What is up, guys? Welcome to my late review of Thor, Love and Thunder. As I just said, I know I'm a little bit late with this, so what I'm going to do is just make it kind of a spoilery talk review. And with this review, guys, I think it's going to be a bit more relaxed. I'm not really so much going to structure it in a mega serious way, make it really formal. I'm just going to say and just kind of cut the shit and get to the things as to why I feel the way I do. And unfortunately, Thor, Love and Thunder, all while, don't get me wrong, I can see the entertaining side of this movie, it just does feel as though it sacrifices a lot of the quality of writing, plot, and even characters for the continuous sake of, haha, you know? That's the vibe of this movie, basically, in a nutshell. And I'm going to get into exactly why. And by the way, that's not to say that comedy in movies, or even comedy movies, can't be greatly written. They can. It's just, what I guess I'm trying to say by that is it feels as though comedy takes absolute precedent and priority, and the writing is kind of the last ingredient put into the cake, or just completely forsaken, if I'm going that far. So one of the things I liked about this movie, and I was entertained by, is sure, like, you know, we've got the performances of the talent, the actors in this movie. I'm a big fan of Natalie Portman. Don't get me started on Christian Bale. He is fantastic. But unfortunately, the talent in this movie, I feel, wasn't remotely enough to hold up everything else that makes this movie what it is. So take Gore, for example. Christian Bale's character. I thought Gore came across as, you know, quite creepy. There's a lot I liked about the actual performance side from Christian Bale. He did everything I think Christian Bale could do within the confines of this movie. But unfortunately, I felt like the whole thing they were going for with Gore, like his whole motivation, that they basically completely shot themselves in the foot with. So aside from enjoying the Christian Bale part to this character when I could, it was hard to take the writing behind the character and the motivations seriously. Now some of you may be asking, but why? What is that? So now let me explain the issues that I had with Christian Bale's character in this movie. The big antagonist, despite me thinking he was probably, if I think about it, the best thing about Thor, Love and Thunder. So right, let's get this straight. Gorr the God Butcher wants to kill all of the gods, right? Because they don't remotely care about people like him, the common people. Yet his plan in this movie, the way it's written to us, right, is to take a bunch of kids and through kidnapping these common people, their god comes to save them. Now, what's his plan again? It's quite literally to go to the altar of eternity and to make that wish so he can kill every single god in existence, more or less at the same time with that said wish. But the thing is, if Gore has this whole world view now, right, that all gods don't care about their people, and he wants to kill them all, he needs to get the key, Stormbreaker, which can summon the Bifrost to open the gate to the altar of eternity. But what does this plan quite literally hinge on? He's relying on the fact that Thor, a god, is an exception to his worldview. Bottom line, you know, this basically just shows that Gorr the God Butcher, his whole motivation and plan there basically contradicts one another, and it's just painfully transparent. I feel as though it completely undermines what the movie is going for with the main antagonist, or at least attempting to go for there. Again, like, I don't want to repeat myself too much more, but the whole plan of his relies on a god being an exception to his worldview of gods. It's just, so do you see what I mean with regards to the critical perspective here? When I look at the writing and what it's going for with the main villain, his whole motivation just shoots itself in the foot with regards to that. And I just feel like the movie's like, hey, you know, it doesn't matter, right? Because don't worry, this movie has a lot of jokes in it. Haha. And then there's the moment where it's like, let alone his origin story in the movie, you know, the god having killed the holder of the Necrosword. Okay, right, I see that. You know, we got this freaking bastard god. But this whole beginning part, you know, I was like, okay, Christian Bale, you know, let's see what it's about. You know, I like Christian Bale. I found his gore creepy and imagery and everything like that, his performance. Let's see what's going on here. But this whole beginning part felt just so delivered on a plate here, and I'm going to try and justify this so it doesn't sound too harsh. To not only the audience was it delivered on a plate with how it unfolded, but to kind of Gore himself by this god. So we have Gore's god basically proceeding to completely piss off this man, Gore himself, again and again and again. Which, look, I get it. They're trying to more or less set up Gore's storyline with how, you know, you're no god, and gods are lame, look at them, they don't care, thus informing his worldview about gods setting up the motivation to kill them because, again, they don't remotely care about the common people. Which, as we've already been over, as the movie quite literally presents to you, is silly because his plan literally relies on Thor, a god, coming to save the common people. But anyway, Gore's god, like, dude, you're informing him I mean by Gore, of things that you really probably shouldn't be telling him, especially with the way you're treating him, that the Necrosword can kill you and other gods. So yeah, on top of just like laying it on super thick about how much you don't care about him, things you really shouldn't tell him after how devastated he is after losing his daughter and everything, not to mention of how he says there's literally nothing after death for him, even though that's kind of confusing as the MCU is already presented, that for each god there is kind of like their own little inbuilt afterlife, you know, as they've gone into many times before. And then like he gets shanked by the Necrosword and then it proceeds to be like this shocked Pikachu face. What masterful writing this is. Do you see what I mean? It's like, hey, I'm gonna take the piss out of you, tell you everything you probably shouldn't know, and then And don't even get me started on, like, even before Gore stabbed him with the Necrosword, I won't even get nitpicky to the point of saying, like, oh, did he not notice the sword floating up there? Because I guess he was looking at him in the eyes. But, like, what about all of his god friends surrounding him in that moment? Nobody's gonna say, hey, dude, Necrosword floating up. I guess that's still similar to the nitpick, but what am I expecting at this point? But again, though, ha ha ha, funny moments. You know, you're not meant to see these issues in the writing. It's still funny, so the movie's great. Again, I know that comes off like a bit like arsey of me with my attitude there, but I think it just irritates me that you have the writing trying to make you forget, or just because you might laugh a few times, it completely abandons the quality of the writing and things like that for the sake of a laugh. I don't really find this comedy quality because it sacrifices a lot. Because again, as I mentioned earlier on in this video, you can have quality comedy movies, superhero movies that are comedic with decent writing. But yeah, this is just where I'm just like, I know it takes boxes for different people, because I understand a lot of people will enjoy this movie because it's like, haha, you know, MCU is funny, but I completely stand by what I said earlier. It's extremely unfortunate to have the sacrifice of quality in writing and plot and even characters for the sake of continuous haha moments. Now, some of you may not care for this part, but was anyone else just wondering, like, where did that jungle come from with the god in it? It is like what my friend told me, and I think he heard this from another video, but I will just say it here because it really did make me laugh. It's like he walked to the end of the Minecraft biome and then, oh, like, you know, it's just here. I guess it would have just have to have appeared that day, because obviously Gore would have taken himself and his daughter there if that was there, and also that god would have to have fought the holder of the Necrosword that day as well for like the jungle. I don't know, it's like, please don't look at this movie in a critical lens, because don't ask questions. And this isn't even one of those things where I'm not one of those people who needs an explanation to every little last bit of a movie. Like, this movie, it's in your face with how transparent these things are, these issues, but it's funny, I guess, you know? With regards to other little bits and bobs with Gore, you could argue that if he wanted to go to the Altar of Eternity to kill all the gods, right? Why did he bother going round to kill other gods when he could have just, you know, gone to try kill Thor to get Stormbreaker and then do what he needs to do to kill them all at once? Honestly, I feel like there's a few issues that do arise out of the length of the movie, or other things that could have helped better explain a few things due to what was cut, because I'm assuming that this could be subject to some of those deleted scenes that make it make more sense slightly. Because then there's like a question that raises with, you know, where did that ancient scroll come from in that tent, if you will, in the Shadow Realm? As on that ancient scroll, it details eternity with Stormbreaker opening the gate. So this ancient scroll must have had like the detail of Stormbreaker on it even before Stormbreaker was even made. But, you know, okay, I'm down for prophecies, I guess. But that's not really my issue. My issue is like, well, where did it come from? I'm assuming in those deleted scenes, perhaps Gore, after being told by the Necrosword at the very beginning in the jungle scene to seek out eternity and use the Bifrost, he went to find this scroll, and that's why it was in that tent. Because again, like, the reason why I'm mentioning this is because I raised the thing of maybe there was no need to butcher the other gods if he just wanted to go to eternity and kill them all with one thought or one wish. So bottom line, I assume that in all of the cut footage of this, there would have been more sense to this perhaps. But again, I don't know how many of you know this. Apparently there's like over 4 hours worth of footage. There was absolutely huge roles like Lena Headey's character with regards to a $7 million role. And obviously, you know, Peter Dinklage. I do feel like some of them were cameos, but it's just like, I wonder what character she was supposed to be. But that's not really even what I'm talking about. I'm just saying there's a lot of other footage that could have fleshed out, oh, where did this scroll come from? Is that how he learned? Even though the sword told him, seek out the Bifrost, he was like, okay, well, I need to now learn about that. So he then went and got the scroll. But again, the scroll just appears, so it's just like, what's going on there? Now, anyway, as for Jane, don't get me wrong, like, I thought that she looked pretty cool as Mighty Thor, like, in many parts of the movie, and I knew they were adapting the whole storyline, having to go through stage 4 cancer, and I knew what that more or less meant with her fate in the movie. I mean, you know, adaptations aren't copy and paste, so you never know what they would have done, but I had a pretty solid idea of how things would end. But I do think there was something off with her dialogue. It's a bit of a weird thing for me, if I'm being honest, because I really think that Natalie Portman, as I said earlier, is a really good actor. In so many roles, she excels. But I don't know if it was the somewhat cringy dialogue at times, or if perhaps she doesn't always just land the execution of comedic acting as well as she maybe does with her dramatic performances, if that makes sense. I'm blaming the dialogue rather than Natalie Portman. I thought she looked pretty cool as Mighty Thor. Not so sure about the helmet though, the CGI helmet, that again, CGI, but that comes under a whole other bag of this movie, which is the VFX. You know, I'm just gonna say this here and there. There were many shots that were questionable that I don't feel like, I know they're using that kind of panel technology that the Batman, the Mandalorian used, but I feel like the way that whatever they're doing with executing it in this movie, it's not nearly as seamless or believable in the environments many times as what those other projects have pulled off with this new technology. I don't really want to delve into it much more than that. You guys know. You either know or you don't know about the VFX. I just don't think it was that great. There were some moments that were really cool. I'm not going to say, oh, every instance of this movie was complete garbage with VFX. No, that'd be lying. But a lot of it kind of was pretty shoddy at times, and yeah. Personally, I don't really like the way the movie handled her becoming Mighty Thor, because this whole part of the movie felt a little bit rushed to me. Like, it was just pretty cut fast and all that. The hammer cool though, right? It made like that little Mjolnir sound. But like, it's not mega clear really what they're doing here. They just played that Mjolnir sound, but just whilst at the same time she turns her head to the books on some Vikings there already. So was she kind of like looking into all that stuff anyway? I don't know. I just found it all a bit handled kind of odd. You know, 1 minute she just hears the Mjolnir hammer sound, and so she just knew to go to Asgard. I can argue like, why didn't the hammer call her sooner? It just kind of comes across again as a thing of just don't really ask questions, you know? And also, as I was somewhat mentioning earlier, I don't think it helped that all of this origin of Mighty Thor was skipped throughout quite quickly in the movie. It felt like maybe there was much more behind it that they wanted to do in the version that is up to around 4 hours or so. I know they filmed a scene of where they have Natalie Portman like suspended in air of where the hammer is located, and she's kind of being imbued with the powers, so that would have just been pretty cool to see. But another thing for me is that I feel like the way and reason as to why she is the Mighty Thor could have been a lot cooler in my opinion, because I feel like it would have been a lot more badass if she had earned Mjolnir in terms of being worthy, rather than that of it just getting revealed that, if you think about it, bottom line, you know, like being candid here, cut away any kind of crap and you strip away and see what is left. The reason why Jane can wield Mjolnir basically is just because Thor asked Mjolnir to, or that, hey, Mjolnir, let Jane pick you up basically and be able to use you. As a result of that, there isn't really any aspect of worthiness there that the movie gets into. It all comes down to permission from Thor. To me, as seeing like a cool concept with Natalie Portman's Jane Foster becoming Thor, I feel like it would have been a lot more badass if Jane was quite literally worthy. I mean, I do see this romantic side, of course I really do, of the protection there that Thor unknowingly granted Mjolnir, or should I say Jane, to use Mjolnir with. But again, strip away the romance there. The only reason that Jane became the Mighty Thor is because she had permission to use the hammer, not because of worthiness. Also, serious question, is Mjolnir and Stormbreaker sentient now? Are they? I mean, I get the ha-ha of this somewhat love triangle between Stormbreaker and Mjolnir here, and you literally see Stormbreaker floating and slowly entering the frame. They really do seem to make them sentient, because if they are, they could arguably help out in more moments in the movie, but they don't. Or, to be honest, a better example is, with this new sentience to Mjolnir and Stormbreaker now, in previous movies, when Thanos was, I guess, using Stormbreaker to somewhat, pierce Thor's armor, my friend pointed this out, wouldn't Stormbreaker be able to somewhat at least help and resist that? And if you're telling me they're not sentient, then what the heck was it that we just saw in the movie when, Stormbreaker would slowly pan in and just be like, and there was a clear jealousy thing going on there? Do you see what I mean? Sometimes introducing new things for the sake of ha-ha sacrifices a lot. Oh, well, what about the previous movies where this could have come in kind of handy? And again, at this point of this video, you can probably tell, and we haven't even arguably got to the biggest repercussions that this movie has on the previous movies, because, oh my, just you wait till you hear what we have to say next. But as you can tell, my biggest gripe is that the movie sacrifices a lot of plot and character and, sense for the sake of humor. Even some of the jokes, they just didn't really land for me. And I do like comedy, I do like humor, but, as I already said, Natalie Portman's lines at times could be cringy, and then Thor's, there was this one moment where he went to, that vending machine, and he broke a bunch of candy out of it, and he came back to Jane, he's like, oh, can you believe that, somebody put all this in a fridge and, and made it locked or something like that? And it's just like, are you really telling me that Thor spent all of this time getting overweight in previous movies, eating candy and stuff, basically stuff from a vending machine, and sitting around playing Fortnite all that time with Korg, and he doesn't know what a vending machine is? But hey ho, dumb Thor is hilarious, right? Again, this may tick various people's boxes, and I do see how it can be entertaining, but for me personally, and from my standard for when I watch these movies, I prefer a bit more of tasteful comedy and a depiction of Thor that isn't quite dumbed down this much. Zeus, I have to admit it, love Russell Crowe, but wasn't a big fan of Russell Crowe's take here. I did hear that Taika basically shot his scenes twice, one with this accent and one without the accent. I assume it would have been more of a Russell Crowe-y kind of normal voice. I did find it pretty weird that, they're taking Zeus's thunderbolt. They basically seemingly kill him in this moment, even though they don't, when they're surrounded by other gods. For a city literally called Omnipotent City, and no other god. These are gods, by the way, so some of them may rival the power of, they probably don't with Thor, but you know what I'm trying to say. No one to get involved, of course. Of course. They just ride out of there with no issue, other than these little guards that are easy to take down. It does feel like death is a little bit of a joke in a way. I do half kind of take that back because, of course, there's Jane. But if you knew anything about Jane, you knew where that was going. But more to the point here, what I'm really on about with this part, and what I'm trying to say is that other than, of course, ultimately Jane dying, I'm not a big fan of death baiting. And what I mean by death baiting is oh, this character's dead. They're for sure dead. Oh, they're not dead, they're fine. So, for example, Valkyrie, oh, damn, she might be dead. The bolt went through her. She got, impaled. The atmosphere changes. It's almost a little bit of slow-mo. It's like a, oh, no moment. Oh, she's fine. She's fine. She's fine. Oh, wait, Korg might be dead. Oh, man, it's going to be interesting to see, the repercussions of this and how Thor might deal with that. Oh, no, wait, he's fine. It's just I'm not saying I wanted characters to die in particular, but death baiting is a little bit cheap, especially with the fact that they used it a couple times in this movie. As we briefly touched on earlier, oh man, Gore's motivation is, as we said, completely undermined by his plan, but the plan of the Eternity Altar, yeah, it potentially creates quite a lot of issues in of itself. So, I pitch this question, the Eternity Altar, the gates to eternity, break a lot in the previous movies, such as Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame. So let me start with this example, because you could have had the characters go there to wish for half the population back, or to even stop Thanos and the Infinity Stones by simply making a single wish. Because Thanos himself, another example, instead of searching for all the stones, the Infinity Stones, could have just gone to the Gates of Eternity, gone to the shrine, used the Bifrost, and made a wish. Much easier, no? Obviously that still means he has to go get Stormbreaker or use some way of using the Bifrost or something. There are a couple ways of doing that. But considering the whole effort he went through to get the Infinity Stones, just simply acquiring the power of the Bifrost would have been a lot easier if, you know, it got him to the point of where he just has to make a wish. And the thing is, guys, I say this in mind with the fact that it seems like they made it pretty clear that it's kind of common knowledge where the gates of eternity are. There's this whole moment right before where Thor goes off. She says it in a way as if like, oh, you know, such common knowledge. It was almost like lethargically articulated. It's like, you know, remember, the gate to eternity is at the literal center of the universe, past a cluster of comets. And he's like, yeah, I know. So if this isn't common knowledge to people or characters like this, then perhaps this is just another thing the movie suffers from, with maybe various scenes being cut from the much longer version of footage that they do have. Because maybe if they found out the location to the gates of eternity before this moment in those scenes, that could have fixed this as to why this could be a big gaping hole in previous movies. But the thing is, that isn't shown. It isn't shown in any extra scenes as to how they know where the gates of eternity are. So it's up to the audience to assume, and me to assume, that people like Thor and Valkyrie, maybe people like Thanos, know that there's a place, or, you know, it's common knowledge amongst beings like this that, hey, there's a gate to eternity, and you just need the power of the Bifrost to make a wish. Again, it wouldn't be an issue if they had explained that they had to seek out that knowledge at some scene, but not explained, so I guess Thanos didn't have to get the Infinity Stones, and he could have just made a wish. I don't know, maybe Thanos' advisors, and don't forget, he had like some creepy-ass advisors who knew quite a few things about this, that, and the other, so I'm sure someone knew about the Gate to Eternity and the altar and all that, but maybe they were like, nah, Thanos, that's too easy, man. Go for the Infinity Stones option. It'll be more fun that way. Maybe it's that. Maybe they're just like, we don't want to do it with a single wish. We want to do it with a snap instead. As for the ending with, like, Thor imbuing all of these kids with the power of Thor, I mean, I get it. It's funny. It's cool. We had the girl with, like, the bunny, like, unleashing that energy. I don't really understand what this means now. And again, what potential repercussions this could have. Because is it just the weapons that have the power of Thor for a limited time only? Or is it the kids as well? Because maybe it is. Because none of them got hurt and they were going up against these Shadow Realm monsters. And some of them had glowing eyes. So I'm guessing that Thor quite literally has the ability, as his god self, to imbue a whole army of people with the power of Thor. Why hasn't this ever been used in a movie before this, or in other moments? Why didn't he get a lot of people volunteering from the town of Asgard to imbue them with the power of Thor to go up against Gore? Do you see what I mean? Like, again, you may enjoy the face value scenes of this, but it's very flimsy. Then we have the ending with Thor, and I think her name is Love, Chris Hemsworth's daughter, that is. I guess when she came back, she is now imbued with the power of a god, because she can, you know, she can freaking wield Stormbreaker now, and, you know, she can jump up the way she did at the end of the movie. So I guess she's gone from what Gore and his daughter were beforehand, these common people who weren't gods, to that of a god after being resurrected. I don't know. Post-credits scene, we have Jane in Valhalla. That's nice, I guess, knowing that Thor can revisit her one day. Then we have Zeus not dead. I kind of already spoke about that, but hey, I guess there's going to be another way to kill him in the next movie, because that's when we have the post-credit scene of Hercules. I'm guessing Hercules is going to go after Thor now, when he's with Love, and I'm guessing, as per Zeus's dialogue, that gods need to get back to where they were, but you can kind of tell that Thor might have this speech in the next movie where he's like, fellow gods, you know, we need to be better. We don't need to have this behavior over our common people. We can, I don't know, I can just imagine him basically, even though Zeus is trying to bring back, you know, the fearful god times or whatever he was insinuating with his last lines in the post-credit scene, I'm guessing Thor will show the other gods that they don't need to be the way they were. Times have changed. I don't know. But that's the movie. And, you know, I don't really think it was that great. Sure, it might be fun if you want to sit at home, order a pizza, have a couple of drinks with your friends, and just watch it as a popcorn flick. But, like, looking at it in, like, a critical way, I can't say this movie was good at all. I really can't. It wasn't that good. I laughed at certain moments where Russell Crowe was going down as Zeus, lifting up his skirt. But a lot of the times I was laughing at a funny moment like that, but at the expense of what exactly? So yeah, Thor Love and Thunder, you could probably tell what I think about it, but let me know your thoughts regardless down in the comments below. Maybe you're not nearly as critical on movies and you just were entertained enough by the jokes. It does seem, though, that a lot of people are kind of thinking similar things about this movie, so it's going to be interesting to see your responses down in the comments. If you got to this point in the video, would really appreciate a thumbs up. It takes 2 seconds on your phone, your laptop, or whatever you're watching on. Really helps me get out there a bit more in the algorithm. But I think I'm going to love you and leave you now. So thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you people of the MCU in the next video. Goodbye.